Welcome to the In Vivo Project podcast, where we talk about real world, real life experiences that empower men to embrace vulnerability so they can live life to the fullest. My name's Eric Payton. I'm your host. And today I'm joined by John Schnieder. John is a son, brother, father, entrepreneur, and director of admissions, and also happens to be one of my really good friends. John, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on, brother.
Fist bump it. Yeah, man, we've been talking about this for a good long while. Well, long enough.
Since you first started?
Since I first started, yeah, and we've just been kind of playing phone tag and getting our schedules synced up, but it's so good to have you on, man. And today's, just by chance, happens to be a really special anniversary for you. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, man. So first off, thank you for having me on. Very, very blessed to be here and just share my story, my experience, my strength, and my hope, right? Yeah, so today is a very important day. I didn't even think about it until after we had, had a little conversation about it last week and figuring out times and stuff. But today is the 12th anniversary of my father's passing. And typically, man, this is a day where I normally take off work anyway and just, kind of relax and just, just be in a spot where I'm remembering things. I'm trying to be grateful for the time I had, but at the same time, I'm definitely still grieving, right? The grieving process never truly ends. And so it was funny how it all played out. And for me, I still kind of go through what that day looked like. And even this morning, when I was just on my way over here, just kind of playing back in my head all the memories and everything that has happened since that point, right? I mean, I met you. Life has kind of been all over the road, but this has eaten up half my life, you know? And just looking back on it, used to be a day I would dread every single year, but today it was just changed the perception of it and was like, I get to go do this. I get to share a little bit about myself and where I was at and how I was able to overcome it and hopefully inspire somebody to make that step.
That's so awesome, man. And I'm super proud of you. And I know your dad, even though he's not here, I know he's still with you and he's super proud of you too, man. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about after his passing is when you're really like your journey with addiction. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So, a little bit about me. I, was born in Chicago, Illinois. We moved down to Texas when I was about 4. I got a younger brother, Jake, who's 4 years younger than me. So, I had a normal childhood, right? Middle-class family. Dad worked for Peterbilt. Mom worked for Party Light. A lot of hard-working people. And so life was good. We moved up to Minnesota. My dad got promoted in his company, and we moved up to Minnesota when I was about 8 or 9. And it was really... I didn't really think much of my dad's diagnosis when he was diagnosed. So he passed of ALS. Not many people know what that is, but it's Lou Gehrig's disease. So it's, the more severe version of MS. There is no cure for it. We don't know what causes it. We don't know how it happens. It's one of those things that it's fatal. There is a timetable. Some people have, can progress slowly, stay alive for 10, 15, 20 years. In my dad's case, it was 3 years and it was done. So when he was diagnosed, I didn't really think anything of it. I was 10 or 11 at the time. My brother was 7. So, we thought it was like a normal cold, right? Like dad got a cold and he's going to go take some medicine. Like everybody will be fine. But as the years progressed, as I got older, obviously he started to deteriorate, lost a lot of his mobility, motor functioning skills, and, by the end of it was just bound to a bed. Had to use some new technology they had, so it was like a speech-to-talk thing. But those are still things that kind of pop in my brain every now and then. If I, see somebody in a wheelchair, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get a flashback of that. Or just little tiny things that I've suppressed for so long. And so, I had started to experiment with drinking a little bit before he passed away. Nothing big, just, a couple friends hanging out on a summer night in like 7th, 8th grade. Oh, we'll go steal some beers from this kid's garage and, just have a fun time on the lake, right? And I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I really didn't go into it with the plan for it to manifest into what it was. But, you know, he passed September 26, 2011, and the next month, it was Halloween 2011. That's the first time when I had tried smoking weed. And I remember feeling just invincible, like nothing could touch me. It was this feeling of like everything that was going on in my life was just gone. It was, I had no worries, right? I didn't have to face the music of my dad's passing. It really didn't even hit me until a couple months after that when I tried to call him on my Motorola Razr. I don't know if you remember the flip phones, Motorola Razr, dude. I tried to call him to pick me up from school, and that's when it kind of hit. I was like, oh, shit, you know, like he's not here anymore. So, but man, I just remember feeling like I was on top of the world. Nobody could touch me. And from that day on, I wanted to feel that every single day. I wanted to feel like I was in a movie. And so it had its slow progression throughout freshman year of high school. But I knew I could get away with it, right? I knew I could because I had this grand excuse that my dad passed. Like, what are you going to say to me? Like, teachers ask me for homework. It's like, oh, I'm just going through a lot. They're like, you know, and so I played that card, man. I played it and I milked the crap out of it. Just to kind of put off everything else that I knew I had to do. But like, man, I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to, like, you know, participate in sports anymore. Like, I was big into lacrosse, and everything got put on hold for drugs. Everything. You know, by my sophomore, junior year of high school, you know, it's funny, when I was in treatment, they refer to me as a garbage head, which is basically you'll take anything and everything that they put in front of you, right? And that's pretty much how it was, man. I mean, it was different pills every single day, whether it was Roxy's, Oxys, Xanax, whatever the case may be. And this is before Trump kind of, you know, solidified the whole drug use and the prescription drugs. But man, it was everywhere, and I just couldn't get out of it. You know, I got into a really, really bad way with some really bad people in Minneapolis, you know, selling drugs and, you know, taking what they gave me and running with it. And dude, there was many nights where I feared for my life. I didn't know what was going to happen. All I knew was that I was getting what I wanted, so screw everybody else, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my mom says. Doesn't matter what the drug dealer who wants to put a bullet in me says. Like, I'm getting what I want, and that's it, you know? And so I lived that life, man, and it was exhausting for 3 or 4 years. It was absolutely exhausting. And then, you know, going into treatment, I had just gotten home from senior homecoming where I'd gotten another arrest, public intoxication charge. I don't know how I got out of that, but I got myself to my car and I drove away, and I was MIA for 4 or 5 days. And I got home, and there was this dude, I forgot his name, but I think his name was like Bruce or something. He was sitting at my table with my mom, and they had all these screenshots of like all the conversations I had with drug dealers, with friends, with everybody. And I had just wrote a blank check to myself in my mom's name for a very significant amount of money. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to skip town. You know, I'm going to take $10,000 out of this account. I'm going to skip town, and I'm going to be gone. And so it was by the grace of God that night I made one good decision for myself. And it was like, hey, man, you can either go to jail or you can go get some help. And I looked at him and said, you know what? There's no rhythm or rhyme for why I said, yes, I'll go get help, but I did. And so the next morning, man, I was on a plane to Warnersville, Pennsylvania at 3:00 in the morning with, you know, with some guys. And yeah, man, it was just, recovery was always one of those things that I thought was way too out of reach for me, right? I just kind of had, it's kind of like that Johnny Manziel documentary, right? Where he's talking about, he never really, like, he had a plan just to end it. Like, I was just going to go off for these 3 years. By the end of high school, I was going to be done. Yeah. Like, I would take my life one way or another, and that's all she wrote. Mm-hmm. But thankfully I am where I am today. You know, and I have you to thank for that, for giving me a nice kick in my butt when I needed it. But just many, many, many other factors, especially the man upstairs, helping me get here.
Yeah. And it wasn't a straight line. I mean, you went to rehab for like 4 months and came back to Texas, right? And that's when we met.
Yep.
And you basically told me, hey, you seem like a decent dude, but I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah, man, you're a cool guy. Yeah, because I remember you called me. You're like, hey, man, you want to go work out? I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Why does he want to go work out with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and that's kind of when you had first started this, too. You had first, you've been working. We had gotten the referral from Karen to go see you.
Yeah.
And so I think you had just kind of gotten out of the whole treatment world and everything.
Yeah.
And so you were kind of getting your feet with it, and we were both growing in it, you know? And yeah, man, I still remember that day when I came home and you were at my table like, yeah, man, you're going to sober living or like you're out. And I was like, all right, man, I'm out later.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But man, you were always there for me. You know, you always stuck by my side. When I was ready for it, you called and you answered, and you helped me get to where I'm at and provided me with the structure that I never really had, right? Whether it was from just a father figure type of role, also just a mentor, right? I still look at you as my mentor and still kind of picking your brain on things, and when things get tough, you know, even as of recently, like I've went through some things that you have gone through and sought your advice for that. And you're the type of person that I definitely appreciate and I'll always be grateful for.
Oh man, I appreciate that. And I vice versa, man. I mean, you have really, like, you went from, like, when we met, you said, hey, I'm not doing anything. And you went out, like, and I think that's important for some people to hear. It's like, if you're not really ready, like, sometimes you need to go experience life on life's terms.
Yeah.
And then you get ready. And that's, you know, when you called me and you
need
were
to wake up on a beach in Corpus Christi with no clothes and no money and then be like, yeah, I got a problem.
Yeah. And I've watched your journey from, like, when you came back from being homeless to, hey, now I'm going to go to sober living. Man, at one point, like, you had no car. You were driving a bike for your mode of transportation. You were working at a car wash, and you've went from that to today you're a director of admissions at a drug and alcohol rehab and mental health. And you guys also do the autistic stuff as well. So it's been really cool. And you've really inspired me. You're watching your journey. That's the cool part of my job is, you know, people are like, I bet it's really rewarding to do the things you do. And the short answer is yes, it's very rewarding when you have somebody that actually does the work, and you've done the work, man. So
well, there's definitely nights where you were exhausting yourself. I already know that.
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it comes with the territory, right? Yep. So talk a little bit about like today, what life is like for you and how the recovery process has continued.
Yeah. I think for me, most importantly, it's, you know, I was always into the whole AA, NA, you know, type of mentality, just because it was a really good starting place, right? It provided, just like I said, the structure that I needed in order to understand that I need to hold myself accountable for my actions. I need to say sorry when I'm wrong, and I need to be grateful for what I have and pass that on to somebody else, right? And so today, a lot of it is through, you know, is through church. A lot of it is through, you know, my great Lord and Savior and Him just continuing to bless me, right? I had to give away all of my control. You know, especially over the past, 2 years or so. Obviously, you know, nothing extreme has happened, but, you know, life always has a funny way of showing itself. You know, went through a really nasty divorce last year. And just, there was just a lot of different elements of life that were just beating me down on a daily basis. You know, a lot of loneliness, a lot of isolation. And I had realized that I was a master of putting on a face, covering up what was really going on with me. And that's something I'm still working on today. Something I'm still trying to understand about myself is that you don't have to just live inside this box, you know? And so there was a time where I was just so down and I just didn't want to talk to anybody about what was happening. On the outside, I looked great. On the outside, I was killing a job. I was, seeing my kids every once in a while, not as much as I wanted to, man, but it was really, really, really hard. And there was a night I remember specifically, after a work Christmas party that I had already planned to take my life. This was last year. I'd already planned on it. It was going to happen. I didn't want to live this way anymore. And not that anything bad was happening, right? I wasn't using drugs. I wasn't, getting myself into trouble, but I was in a pattern of behavior to where I was self-destructing. Not from the outside, but from the inside. And I remember that I'd bought that gun and I'd went to that spot on the lake where I'd gone for many, many, many years. I'd written my little note and I brought this Bible because it has my name on it. My grandpa gave me, when I was 7 or 8, so they could identify me. And for whatever reason, it was a brand new gun. That gun jammed. And I don't know why, but I just had this overcoming feeling of I just cried. I cried for like an hour straight. I threw that thing in the water. And I just sat there and I had my Bible next to me. And I remember just turning to a random page out of any single page in the Bible. And it was Psalms 31. One of my favorite, like the best, just the overall best chapter I've ever read. And it was, to highlight it, it was about all basically adversities in life, and how he will continue to provide. He will continue to shine his light. I'm a really big music guy. I love music, and music it's how I express myself nowadays. We were talking about it, Zach Bryan and country music, stuff like that. But there's a song he just released. It's called Spotless. And it says that all good things will come to you in due time. And just like Isaiah 60, right? When the Lord's ready to make it happen, he'll make it happen. And I was just trying to force things. I was trying to just be somebody I wasn't. I was trying to put on a face and trying to do X, Y, and Z, man. And I came to this realization that after 8 years of continuing to work on myself, I wasn't even doing it for myself. I was doing it so everybody else would get off my back for it, And that's when, on January 1st, I said, you know what, I'm going to fully just commit to this whole God thing, right? I was raised in the church. I didn't think I was worth it. I'd gone to service a lot of times intoxicated when I was younger. We used to go to Saturday night service, which I don't know why we're going to Saturday night service, but, that was...
So you don't have to wake up early on Sunday
wake up
morning.
On Sunday, yeah, because I wasn't going to wake up. Yeah, so, but I committed my full self to that, and everything since that point. It's not like every day is great, not every day is beautiful. I still have rainy days, I'm still going to have work stress. I'm still going to have, relationship stress, like whatever that looks like. But I can live day by day, and I can be okay with being myself. I can be okay with being authentic and not holding back and not being like, oh, what does this person want to hear from me? No, I'm going to tell you what I really think and my opinion on things. And so I've just surrounded myself with really, really good people, just like you and just like what In Vivo did for me. And we were talking about it beforehand, right? Like content, what you eat is what you're going to be. What I surround myself with social media wise, what I'm watching on TV, what I'm doing, what my daily routine looks like, getting that structure again, man. And that's been the biggest thing for me, is asking for help, being able to ask for help, being able to be okay with asking for help. I feel like today, especially with men, a lot of it, and I feel it's getting better, but a lot of it is you got to have it figured out, right? And not a lot of people want to ask for help, especially when you're in, a higher pay grade or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, you're doing great, and why would you need anything? Like, why would you be struggling? You got it so good. I used to look at people all the time like, you got it so good. And now that I'm there, I'm like, this kind of sucks, like this is hard. Like, I still have issues. I'm still a person, I'm still a father. I'm still trying to be, actively involved in my kids' life and what I want for them. But A lot of it for me, man, is even having the opportunity to come on something like this, having the opportunity just to share and just to say, hey, like, it's okay to not be okay. You taught me that as well. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And
Nobody's
I think,
gonna judge you.
yeah. And I think, you know, obviously that's a big part of why I'm doing the podcast is because I want to have guys on here like you that can raise their hand and say, you know what, I was in such a bad spot that I was going to take my own life. And, you know my story. I lost my brother 2 years ago. He took his own life.
Yep.
And, you know, I know that I'm never going to bring him back. But one thing I can do is start a platform for other guys to say, hey, it's okay to get to that spot, but when you get there, pick up the phone,
Yep.
do whatever you have to do to
Yep.
reach out to somebody. You need a good group of guys. That's what I'm trying to start this platform is so guys can connect with other guys that are, you know, even like you said, if you think you've got everything figured out. And I've been there too, bro. Like, I've been super blessed and, you know, but sometimes I look around and I'm just like, man, I got some nice things. I got a nice place, a nice car, but you know what? I still have the same core problems that everybody else has. And I've got to, you know, continually work a program like what you're talking about. And that's what I love about, you know, I do addiction and mental health primarily, but the other part of this is I do want to switch over to more mainstream that you don't have to have an addiction or a mental health problem to have problems, you know? And so to be able to speak up and talk about what's really going on with you when you need it, I think it's, you know, it's priceless to be able to have that in your life. So,
yeah. And I think a lot of it today for men specifically is just, you know, people are maybe scared to do so or, you know, think, and something I still struggle with is, just being able to express my faith. You know, it's something that drives me every single day and it's something that I keep really, really close to my heart. But I don't express it the way that I feel like I should. And same thing with opening up about myself is, I love what you're doing and creating the platform to do so because we're in Dallas. You go take a look at all these people down the road. I mean, I guarantee you every single one of them has a problem that they need some help with.
yeah.
You know, not everybody's perfect on the outside. And it's just changing my perception, just like I was talking about at the very beginning, right? Changing my perception to a day full of dread, a day full of grief to an opportunity, a day where I can celebrate the life of my father and the 14 years that I had with him, a day where I can instill all the characteristics that he did in me to my kids and pass that along. And so that's the biggest opportunity, man. I mean, I'm not in a great, you know, not everything's perfect. Like I drive an 04 Denali, dude. Like that thing's broken every single day. But I'm thankful for what I have, even on days of stress at work, right? You got all these KPIs to meet. You got this, that, and the other. It's like, I thank God for even allowing me to be in that situation, even allowing me to have these problems, right? Like I could be without a job again.
Yeah.
You know, I could be back on the street. I could be back in Corpus Christi on a beach, you know, just like wondering like what happened.
Right.
And yeah, man, that's why I love what you're doing.
Yeah. I appreciate it. And I, you know, it's like, I think if you kind of get used to when you're having a bad day, like today for me, it was like I was late getting to my first appointment, got in traffic and people were driving slow. When I went to go get my lunch to go today, like it wasn't ready yet. And I'm like, I've got to get ready for this podcast. But then I caught myself and I was like, you know what? None of that stuff really matters. We're still going to get it done. I'm just going to be grateful that I'm walking around and I'm getting to do a lot of the things that I really want to do.
And I think for me, it's just remembering that it doesn't all have to happen today, right? I'm very ADHD. I'm very like go, go, go. And if I miss something, I'm probably going to miss it. But man, when I'm on it, like that's what I want. And that's where I've had to, you know, going back to when I was 14, 15 years old and in my active addiction, is saying, hey man, this ain't all going to happen right now. Your life ain't going to look perfect right now. Take it day by day. Like God's got a plan for it. He's got it all figured out. I remember, a therapist I used to see a really, really long time ago, but she said, if you could see your life 10, 15, 20 years from now, you wouldn't be able to fathom it.
Right.
Right. And I've kind of held that with me, because why would I want to, like, you don't watch a movie just to scroll to the end and see what happens, see who dies. Like, you want to see the whole entire thing. Yeah. It's a day by day grind. And I've had to make really, really hard decisions for myself that in the moment would cause me pain. In the moment, I knew that I would suffer, just like the divorce or any other decision, right? But I knew the long-term gain of that. I knew that I wouldn't be stuck in my box anymore. I knew that I would be able to live free, and that ultimately I would be happier in the long run. I knew that every decision in my life, I've had to learn the hard way. You know that more than anybody. I've had to learn the hard way. But there are things now where I can say, all right, is this really the best thing for me? Is this really what God wants me to do? Is this what I was called to do? Even just leaving somebody a note, man, just on their desk every morning, being like, hey, man, I'm grateful for you.
Yeah.
Or just doing a random act of kindness. Like, those are things that I don't expect back, but that changes somebody's day.
Yeah.
That impacts them on a way bigger scale. So you don't know what they're going through. You have no idea.
Yeah, small little things like that not only does it change somebody else's day, it changes your day, especially when they respond to, not that you're looking for a response, but when somebody says, hey, I really appreciate that note you left on my desk today. You get that stuff back. So I love that you're talking about that. And I think there's a lot of little things that people overlook sometimes, that if you do those things consistently, life gets a lot better. Yeah. And you're able to deal with, the ups and downs of things that are going on. Mm-hmm. So, well, for anybody listening out there, like, that's struggling, what advice would you give them if they're kind of on the fence with changing their life?
Yeah, I would say, it's just like me, right? You have to be fully ready to do this. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You couldn't come to my house and do it for me. My mom couldn't do it for me. You got to be ready to do it, but it's going to be a lot of trial and tribulation. It's not going to be easy. You're not going to get a gold medal after it, but you're going to reap the reward internally. You're going to be able to look yourself in the face every single day and say, hey, that's somebody that I strive to be, and that's somebody that I can be proud of on a daily basis. I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but I aim to get better at what I'm bad at. Just like communication, right? I am bad at communicating sometimes. I will leave people on red and not even mean to leave them on red on my phone all the time.
Right.
Because I got 12 other things going on, and my mind is just all over the place. But being able just to make that call to somebody, being able to doesn't have to be a lot of people, right? My dad always told me that you'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies. 4 really good people in your life that you can count on any single time of the day, whatever the situation is, couple people in your corner, and make that call. Give yourself a chance. We all know that nothing is going to change right now, what you're doing. I tell my adult clients all the time, nothing's going to change. You waiting, if it's, Tuesday today? If you waiting to Saturday to come in, what are you going to accomplish from here to Saturday? You're not going to do, nothing is going to change. It's going to get worse.
Yeah, maybe a couple more parties in between.
That's exactly it. Yeah. We're going to go out, we're going to hit the bars, X, Y, and Z, but nothing gets better. And so if you're ready to make the change, understand that there is going to be hard work, but it's just like anything that we do in life, right? If it's worth doing, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
If it was easy, everybody could do it. We wouldn't have any of these problems in the world, right? But your story is bigger than where you're at right now. And that's something that I had to look into a lot, is that, yes, on paper I'm young, but man, I've lived enough life for a 60-year-old man at this point, man. I mean, I've seen some things, I've been through some things to where it's really matured me. And taking that leap was one of the things I didn't want to do, because I didn't know how it would turn out. I always wanted to know how this is going to go, how this is going to play out. Where am I going to be with this? Where am I going to be with that? And man, it's just a day-by-day grind. Yeah. If you can just do it for one day at a time, not to quote the big book, but if you can do it one day at a time, man, we're golden. Yeah. We're good.
Yeah. It is so true, though. Really is a one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, 1 second at a time, and just trying to be present in the moment and not looking back too far and not trying to, like you said, fast forward to the end so you can figure out what's happening because you're really missing all the good stuff.
All of it, man. I mean, what's the fun in that, right? Yeah. And it's for a lot of not just men, but also women, just being able to make that decision is the hardest part, right? That's 75% of the battle is for you. When I have clients walk in, that was the hardest part, was them just to get here in one piece.
Right.
The rest is easy. You gave me a little bit of opportunity and all of the good is going to rush into that. When you have a little bit, you're like, oh, dang, this is nice. Like, this is good not to be in charge. This is good not to have it all figured out. You don't have to.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, there's a relief to that, man. There really is a relief to that. And I've really, even with starting this podcast, I've gotten into the headspace of, oh my gosh, I've got to have all this stuff figured out. Yeah. I can't miss any podcast. I have to do this. I've got to get the right guest on. And then finally I caught myself and I was like, hang on, time out.
Yeah.
Time out.
Let's have fun.
Yeah. I'm enjoying this process. Like you said, the rest will take care of itself the way it's supposed to be. If I just keep showing up and doing the little things daily that I need to be doing, the rest will take care of itself. And man, that's such a breath of fresh air. Your story is so unique because you started your treatment career as a teenager. Man, and you're only 26 right now, which is, from somebody sitting over here that just turned 50, man, it's like you're half my age. But talk, I think this is important because you've been in the shoes of somebody that's been to treatment in their teenage years. Yep. You're still working through, being in your early 20s. And you've been on the side of being a loved one. But, because I get a lot of questions from parents. They're just like, how do I do this deal with my son or my daughter or my loved one that's struggling with addiction or mental health? So what kind of advice would you give to the parents or loved ones out there?
Yeah. And, working specifically with adolescents, that's kind of why I got in the field, right? Was because I was that kid at one point. And so I thought I could, and I still do, relate to a lot of their problems. Now, obviously, society's changed in the past, 8 years or so. But most of the problems are still there, right? I mean, these kids they are just like me. They were extremely defiant. I don't give an F what you say to me. I'm doing what I want to do, and it doesn't matter. For parents, what I normally see is a feeling of just shock and not willing to accept what's happening in the home, not willing to understand or say, oh, my little Johnny would never do that. He would never be on the street selling drugs or, so coming to realization of it and recognizing that this isn't like a make or break it. I know, especially in high school nowadays, it's all about how many clubs you're in, what after extracurricular activities you're involved in. Is this going to look good for your transcripts in college and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't have a dream to even make it to college. I had a 0.6 GPA in high school. Yeah. Like, there was no plan on that. And that's where these kids are going to go. You could want, just like my mom wanted the best for me, my family wanted the best for me. I had to be forced to do it. That's why we can't make decisions for ourselves until we're 21 years old. Yeah. Or 18 years old now. Right. Yeah. Our frontal cortex is not fully developed for that. And so the parents have to be the ones drawing the line saying, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is where you need to go. You can fight it all you want, but this is in the best interest for you. Even when I was in treatment, like the first 3 months of it, I was very resistant. I just kind of went with the flow. I participated when I needed to, but man, I wasn't doing EMDR therapy. I'm not talking about any of my problems. Like, I'm going to tell you what you want to hear and I'm out. But it was that day, like 90 to 95 is when the moment of clarity and everything just kind of popped. It was, I really, really want this. Like, this isn't bad. Like, I don't have to have these reservations off on the side, and I can go ahead and I can actually make a change for myself. I may not know how to do it immediately, but even some of the principles that I learned when I was in treatment, HALT, right? Can't make a decision if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. I got beaten over the head with that thing so many times. I'm like, I've heard this stupid HALT acronym for 4 months now. Stop.
HALT before you tell me.
Yeah, this isn't like you got HALT. I'll give you the Heisman real quick. But and just like you said, my story is not a linear line, right? Yeah. It is up, down, side to side, curvy. And that's what parents need to realize as well, right? Like, you could send your kid to a treatment center. Doesn't mean they're going to be fixed. You have to do the same work that they do. You have to be equally as involved as they are. And it's not an easy fix. It's not just like, hey, this is just going to, smash it. We're never going to have this conversation ever again. Yeah. There are going to be times when they struggle. It's just like with adults in relapse, right? People need to go back to go forward. I think the best analogy just recently with me being a father is potty training. It's like, dude, my son did so well potty training the first month, and then he just didn't do it. He's like, nope, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I'm just going to pee and poop my pants all the time again. You're going to have to change me. And I'm like, so what do you do, right? He totally regressed. We were doing so well, he regressed. And so we had to, once again, just re-implement the structure. Positive reinforcement. Say, hey, man, you're doing a great, every single time he got, he went to the potty, dude, he was getting a high five. He was getting just serenaded with love. The parents have to remember that there's going to be times when your kid is not well, when your kid needs your help, and we can't just hold that over their head. Especially with this generation, man, they are so consumed by technology. They're so consumed by what everybody else is doing. And I think the parents are too. They don't want to be the parent in the community that has a kid who's messed up and this, that, and the other. And getting over that stereotype and saying, hey, it's okay to have this. We've done a great job as a society, man. There are plenty of support groups for this type of stuff. Obviously, Al-Anon is the biggest one, but man, there are support groups in the ISDs. I just found out that school districts are setting aside money for mental health treatment for kids who are struggling. Yeah. I had no idea this was even happening, but they've kind of kept on the low and they've been slowly expanding it. But we're finally at a point where people recognize this is an issue and that these kids are our future. And anything we can do now to set them up, whether they want it or not, we gave them the opportunity to do so. And eventually, hopefully, God prevails. He will come around and say, you know what, this is the time for you to do it. Everything that you have learned is going to be used for good. And here we go. So,
yeah, I love it, man. I mean, you're such good advice that it's not, none of this stuff is a straight line. Life in general is not a straight line.
No.
And being able to recognize that, when things go wrong, because I think a lot of times with, especially with parents, there's such a spotlight on that person. And if they do one wrong thing, the parents almost a lot of times get in such a bad place that it makes the person that's going through it get in a bad place. So I think, again, your analogy of everything is spot on. And I hope if there's parents out that are listening, you're probably going to need to rewind this and listen to it a few times to get it. But there's such good stuff, man.
And that's the hard truth, right? That's the black and white of this, of substance abuse, of mental health, right? You really have two options. You get the help and you try it, or you keep doing the same thing. There is no in between.
Yeah.
There really isn't. And then that's the hardest thing for parents to grasp is, we can, so many parents have been like, we're just going to give them one more shot. We're going to, we got this little schedule now, and if they abide by it, everything's going to be good. And you're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It's going to keep bleeding. It's going to get infected. And until you get to the root of it, take that bullet out. Yeah. Nothing changes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, there's, these kids, man, they're super smart. So they're
so smart.
They
apply themselves. They could be nuclear physicists.
Right. Yeah. And so they know how to push their parents' buttons, and I think there's a certain point with parents where you have to say, hey, I'm not participating in this anymore. There's only one option here. You either go get better, or we're not going to keep giving you one more chance with a schedule and all that stuff, because as well as I do, that one more chance turns into 10 more chances, and then you look up and everybody's sitting around
the table.
Yeah,
hey, you got a problem.
We're back again.
Yep.
So, well, man, I'm such an honor to have you on today, man. And I just want to tell you like how proud I am of you. And I'm glad you're here. The world needs you. You are an amazing dude and you're doing great work, and you're 26, man. You're just getting started. And I hope that, we can have you back on again.
Sure, I'd love to.
And just chat it up, man. Yeah. So if anybody's listening and John's story resonated with you, you can reach us on all social media at theinvivoproject.com is our website, and at The In Vivo Project is where we're at on Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. So if this resonated with you, reach out to us if we can help. And if you want to get in touch with John, we can definitely help you do that.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I will say one thing to anybody who wants to make that leap, that not only just your personality, but the work that you do and that you continue to do for people you've known for 10, 15 years. It does have an impact, and it may not, like I said, it may not all come at once. It took a very, very long time for me to get to where I'm at. But at the same time, it was every single foundation, everything that you did, everything that you instilled was from your heart. Yeah. And that's something that I'll always appreciate. And I know that anybody else who works with you in the future will appreciate, because you met me where I was. And it was funny because I was praying last night. I was just saying, thank you, God, for just being there even when I wasn't ready for it. You were always there when I wasn't ready for it. And if there's anybody I would trust, anybody that I would promote, it would be you, man, because you care. Your heart's in the right place, and people will recognize that. People see that.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, bro. Well, thanks for coming on, bro. We'll do it again.
Love you, man.
Peace.